treating black families or underserved communities. And that's where this project is addressing that gap in the research. We're going to be focused on Afrocentric. We're going to adopt an Afrocentric trauma treatment model. One, I think it's the only one in the state of Kentucky. So anyone that wants to work on this project or, volunteer or anything under this project, we're going to basically mandate that they go through this Afrocentric trauma treatment model. And that's going to help us become more culturally competent. And I think becoming more culturally competent, understand the historic context of trauma, understanding the history, I think that would definitely impact the system in terms of treating underserved communities, specifically African American families.
Okay, so when you talk about trauma that African American communities face, we all know we say domestic violence. So we say witnessing violence just in our community, in the streets, at an early age. From a clinical standpoint, what does that do to, say, for example, myself? Probably the first time I saw someone or experienced someone being murdered, I may have been 11 years old. I didn't think that it became normalized. So I didn't think that had any effect on the way I treated my peers or even the way I may have treated personal relationships. But are you saying experiencing those type of traumas at an early age, does it have an effect on our personal relationships?
It does. It can. And if you want to dig a little more deeper into the research, it's been proven that there's a human hormone that can be trickled down through genetics in terms of adaptability and coping mechanisms. And so not only are we modeling those behaviors, are we normalizing those behaviors, but those adaptations, those coping skills, or lack thereof, are being passed down genetically.
Oh, genetically as well.
Yes.
So it's not just behavior, it can be passed down genetically.
Correct, yes.
So that explains, look, because there was a period in my life where I was addicted to crazy women. And I think all of us have been in that situation where
I don't think that's had anything to
but
do
no,
with
look. No, but look, there's a certain, like, I've known a lot of men that have I guess it's been so normalized that you get in a cycle of, you might date a woman that is, well, I guess what now would be considered physically abusive or just a total dysfunctional relationship, right? It was so normal that didn't bother me, for a woman is, for somebody to say she's crazy, or in my mind, I'm thinking crazy women.
So I'm gonna jump in.
Look at me.
I'm gonna jump in right quick, please, because we got a certain responsibility as black men, right? Mm-hmm. And I understand the context, right? You having fun, joking, talking about your experience, and I also think, and not just think though, this has an impact on the way we talk about our experiences and our women. And so when we say crazy women, we talking about a certain context. But if we look at the bigger picture and understand how we're trying to change the narrative and specifically talking about our experiences, the women aren't necessarily crazy, right?
Right.
They've experienced trauma, and that's manifesting through our social interactions as black people. So just want to, because I know some people be looking like, what the hell? Like, you were sitting there, right? And so I think that's part of our growing social responsibility, just as black people having these critical conversations to say, well, yeah, in fun and jokes, it's, we say crazy women, but in reality, it really is the trauma that's manifested, and that's what we're talking about. So.
I got a question for both of y'all. Why is it that it always seems like that the young male, black males, men always put on the back burner more so than any other races? And
In what context?
I mean, I'm like, so we just came from a movement for females, you know what I'm saying? We done had the LGB movement, you know what I'm saying? Why haven't it been a movement, you know what I'm saying, as far as when it comes to the mental health of black men? Because I feel like we've been neglected, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I really, the only thing I can say to that inquisition is the Minority Mental Health Project is starting to change that narrative. And this event on the 21st is going to allow us as men to have a safe space to start a new trend. All types of men across the spectrum is going to be at this event. and I think that it's going to be a very profound event. I think it's going to be a trendsetter, and I really want us as black men to be purposeful and be more intentional to change the narrative that you just spoke of.
And I also think, just historically, if we're going back thousands of years, the world understands the black man is very fucking powerful. And I know you told me to watch the mouth, but like, we powerful, right?
Right.
We are extremely powerful. And so the white supremacy understands that. And so within, again, the context of our society, I think when we look at the system's view and how we've been treated in systems, all of that has been facilitated to white supremacy's understanding. So if we understand that this element of society, this black male, is a threat to our existence, to our supremacy, then we got to annihilate that. We got to assassinate that. But I will say, though, there's been local response as well as a national response to bring some attention to that. So you have initiatives such as Black Male Achievement Initiative. Local Metro United Way is a big supporter of that. Also an initiative called Be Me. And then you have Barack Obama, who created My Brother's Keeper. So there's been some responses over the past 8 years to address exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so question: how do we get black males on board when in terms of mental health? Because there's this narrative out there, this thought process that a lot of black males are resistant or hesitant to seek mental health treatment. I mean, and it goes back. We have things like the Tuskegee experiment. We have other things that have kind of steered us away from seeking treatment. So it appears to be, from the outside, it appears that maybe some of the black females are more open to mental health treatment, but black males may be a little more resistant when it comes to that area. So how do we get black males to get on board with mental health treatment? And then to take it further, what are your thoughts when it comes to medicating as far as mental health treatment?
Well, in terms of getting black males more involved, it's going to take individuals like yourself utilizing the platform that you are blessed with to bring attention to this issue or to the gaps. It's going to take individuals such as myself. I'm less than 4% of a black male licensed clinician in the U.S. I have a great responsibility using my platform, using the gifts that I'm blessed with to bring attention to it. Trinidad Jackson has a great platform. I think if each individual, if we can collaborate and use our platform that we're blessed with to bring attention to it, such as this event on the 21st, then really take advantage of it and really start to change the narrative of the conversation. And it's going to take us to really be purposeful and more intentional to do that. With your second question, do I believe in medication? I believe in medication if it's properly administered, if the individual is properly diagnosed. What I come across being as a licensed clinician is a lot of our underserved families and communities are being overly medicated, and that's just my personal opinion. I think there are some methods that can be tried and before you get results to the medication, but the families are going to have to take a more intentional interest or vested interest in the treatment process, meaning being engaged in the therapeutic process and not just dropping your kid or your child off to therapy and then picking up, go in and follow up, engage, get involved with the treatment plan, try everything else before the medication. But medication, if it's a real diagnosis, a true diagnosis, I think medication can be effective in conjunction with therapy, and the research shows that you have a greater chance of a positive outcome with both of those tools in place.
I think another thing that would help is the way that we go about raising a young man. Letting them know it's okay to cry, it's okay to speak out. You don't always have to be tough. We all raised. You fall down, you bet not cry. And I think, we have to change the narrative of how we raise our males. Because if we've been programmed not to speak out, not to show no emotions and stuff like that. So once we get older, it's 30 years of programming not to show no emotion, so we're not going to show no emotion. So if you tell somebody who been taught not to show no emotion, when it comes to these therapies and things of mental health, speaking out on, we more or less show with our actions instead of our words. So we're not going to talk.
Yeah, what you're speaking of is the masculine role norm. And I always use the balloon analogy. You know, our immune system is only designed to fight off one stress at a time, right? So just imagine you have a balloon in your hand. For every life stressor that you're dealing with, you're blowing in that balloon. And eventually what's going to happen? That balloon is going to pop. And that's what's happening to a lot of our families, a lot of us as black men and women. You know, we're popping because we don't have the skill set to navigate all those adverse challenges that we're dealing with on a daily basis. And you are correct. I grew up, you know, with being told, boys don't cry, shut up. You know, what this does, it teaches us to internalize and suppress our true thoughts and feelings. And our immune system cannot handle that. For an example, I mean, you have the young brothers, you know, you got the gun violence. You know, these are a lot of stressors that our young people are having to navigate, in which they don't have the skill set to navigate. And so this platform is allowing them, it's giving them the permission to talk. Yes, you can speak of your feelings. Yes, you can externalize, you know, what's bothering you. You know, but it's a matter of finding that safe space and addressing that trust issue, giving them that space and someone who they can entrust to open up to.
Okay, so, no, go ahead.
Y'all, you know, y'all both definitely rang the bell, and I just want to, especially because you specified it with the masculine role norms, and I just want to hone in on that a little bit more to say that once more we got to look at how both men and women facilitate that, right? And so if I think that I have to perform a certain way as a male in front of or around women, and they reinforce that norm, that's contributing and that's compounding the damage. So again, mothers and women, we all have to understand how that narrative needs to be changed, and how it impacts us as men. And then just to comment on medication, I don't think it's your personal opinion. I think it's fact over medication, because Big Pharma is a business. Like, that's a multi-billion-dollar business that's making profit off of our legacy trauma, right? And so if we're not looking at the role that capitalism plays in trauma and how trauma is intersected with poverty, again, we will be talking about the symptoms all day without addressing the root. But yeah, you know, Big Pharma, they come into doctor's office and in mental health facilities and they buy companies' lunches to say, yo, here's the next new drug. Push that for me, right? So we talking about, right, they slanging on the clock and making billions. So
the prison system is a business.
It's all a business.
It's a business, you know. So,
and then 10 years later, we see if you've taken such and such drug over the past so and so years, side effects would be that you see these huge class action lawsuits from effects from these particular drugs that were supposed to be FDA tested or approved. So
and they've already made, and they know that. So they've already acquired enough profit to understand how much they're going to have to pay out for the lawsuits.
Right.
Collateral damage. And then the collateral damage, right?
Okay, and I know you guys got to get out of here, but for anyone, but males in particular, since we're talking about males right now, but for anyone that hasn't experienced mental health treatment, and say, I'll use my experience, for example, say someone like me that comes from same places you come from, and we've experienced trauma that seems normal. When someone seeks out therapy, and I'm sure there depending on the individual, there are a multitude of different treatment processes that you would go through when dealing with each individual. But for someone that's never experienced therapy, when you sit down with the therapist, what is to be expected? Because I think there's a certain fear aspect when people that have never seek therapy, what are they going to experience when they sit down with a therapist?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is educate the community on their rights. A lot of times our families going into these community health agencies and they just, you know, take whoever is assigned to them. No, you have a right to request a black therapist. You have the right to request an African-American female or male therapist. You have that right. And if that agency does not have that for you, do you have the right to walk out the door and to seek services elsewhere? But in terms of addressing that, and